exciting stories that we have planned for you right here on the show this Tuesday morning. First though, let's take a look at what they are. These are the headlines. We have a special episode today that's going to help you travel smarter. The ultimate travel insurance guide. So we're going to break down for you the best way to fly, whether you're flying domestically or internationally. What are the kind of travel insurance options you should opt for, if at all? What should you go for? What should you stay away from? We have experts joining us on the show to break it down for us entirely, especially right before holiday season. Right after that, we are so excited to have on the show for the first time Nobel Prize winners. These are the 2024 Nobel Memorial Prize winners. This is the Economics Nobel Prize in particular. We're going to have them discuss with us their work that won them this Nobel Prize, in which they've taken a look at institutions and the role they play in keeping countries poor. They're going to answer all of our questions for us. It's going to be a particularly deep, particularly interesting discussion right here on the show. And then once again, we check in on AQI as Delhi's AQI is spiking at 999. Can't measure anymore. Mudga is choking at 999. You have Anand Vihar recording 438. We get you the pollution pulse across the city. And then we take you to the roads. The most sensible luxury cool SUV, that's the question. Can the coupe Q8 be the answer that you're looking for? It's been unveiled, the power, the style, the luxury that its design contains. But what does it leave? Does it leave anything lacking? 2024 Audi Q8. This is the first drive review brought to you, of course, by Overdrive. This will be the Overdrive verdict on the show. First up though, we're taking a look at a particularly interesting question right as holiday season is around the corner. So in a few weeks from now, you're going to be packing up your bags possibly. You're going to be traveling with your family to a different part of either the country or the rest of the world. And we thought that it's so important to look at a crucial aspect of travel planning, one that's often overlooked until it's too late. We're talking a little bit about travel insurance today. And the reason we thought this was such an important issue to look at was, and you would have heard about this in the news, hundreds and hundreds of flights in the recent past either getting delays or getting held up altogether because of a new threat in the aviation industry. This is the problem of bomb threats. You receive a threat of some kind, or aviation companies will receive a threat of some kind, and travelers who are either already on the plane or about to board are left wondering if there's any kind of compensation. If they're going to be delayed, will they receive any kind of money out of it? And we thought today is the right time to take a look at what kind of travel insurance policies exist. So we thought, A, it's important to look at this question. Does travel insurance cover this kind of problem at all? What does travel insurance even cover? Does it cover weather-related delays, for example? Does it cover if an airline decides that an incoming flight is late, therefore their flight can't take off? These kind of problems plague our flight. So we wanted to take a look at what answers exist and what answers don't exist. Earlier this year, in April, the DGCA said that there had been an increase of about 30% in the number of flights that are seeing delays across the industry. So today's discussion is a very, very important one. We thought, as we told you a little earlier, that we'd have experts come on the show, break it down for us, and tell us if their thoughts on domestic travel and domestic travel insurance are the same as their thoughts on international travel insurance, or whether those are two different beasts that need to be broken down differently. Let's dive into all of the nuances right here on the show. Joining us to bring us everything when it comes to what this is will be a specialist. We'll go to him in just a second, but some of the key questions. Is domestic travel insurance truly necessary? Is it a waste of money? What qualifies as a valid claim, and how do you go about actually making that claim if you need to make it? And how do insurers behind the scenes assess the validity of bomb threats? What's the difference between a cancellation due to a credible threat versus something like hoaxes, which is what we're starting with? Should we opt for comprehensive coverages? What do those comprehensive coverages actually look like? What's the fine print you should be reading for? All of that and more comes here. Mahavir Chopra joins us on the show. He's the founder of Beshak Insurance. He's going to be shedding light on all of this for us right now. Mahavir, good morning. Thank you for joining us bright and early on the show, for breaking it down for our viewers. Can we just ask you first off, Tell us, and this is just a basic question to get us started. Domestic travel insurance, what does it cover? What does it not cover usually?
Right. So there are two types of domestic travel insurance. First of all, one which you can buy on your own from an insurance company's website, and the other which is available through these travel portals. Right. If you're buying a ticket online, then the travel portal will also give you an option to opt in into a travel insurance
Right.
kind of a cover. Right. This will typically cost you around 400, 450 rupees, and this is a cover that will probably offer you covers related to trip delay, trip cancellation, missed flights, and a lot of such stuff. The uh, coverage that it will provide you is a quite a comprehensive coverage in terms of whatever delays or missed baggages or lost baggages that you could think of. Covers related to trip and covers related to probably anything related to, let's say, a hospitalization or an accident that happens is part of the personal accident kind of a cover that they offer you as part of the overall travel package insurance cover that they would offer you. The cover that the insurance company offers on its own is a very different kind of a cover. It is largely a cover that would give you, a coverage for, let's say, you missing a departure, right? And apart from that, there could be covers related to hospitalization and a disability or an accident or an evacuation, which is basically where if you are in a different city and you need to be brought back to your city so that you are basically taken care of in the city you are from, then those things are covered.
Okay, so before we go any further, we thought we had to ask you how many Indians are actually going for it? Because when you're buying a plane ticket and you're
Yeah.
actually deciding whether or not you should tick that box of the
Yeah.
insurance, this is often a question I wonder, am I in the majority? Am I in the minority if I'm choosing not to go for that? What are the numbers like?
Right. So actually, earlier this kind of a cover was basically made mandatory by insurance by online travel agents. Basically, they used to allow IRDA used
It
to
should be
allow them to
pre-checked.
have a pre-check, and because of the pre-check, a lot of people used to end up buying this kind of a cover. But today, after that thing has been removed, now the regulator has said that you cannot have a pre-check. You need to allow the customer to opt in. I think around 25, what I've been hearing, there are no real public numbers about this, but the uptake, what is said in the industry is around 20%. 80% people don't opt for it. Largely because if you look at the price versus the benefit that a customer gets, there is a dichotomy at that time. So you're paying around 450 rupees. And let's say if there is a delay in baggage, or let's say if a baggage is lost, or there is a trip delay of more than 2 hours, then you will end up getting a flat 1000 bucks, 1000 rupees. That's it. So paying 50 rupees maximum, the kind of risks that you are seeing when you are probably taking a flight is a delay, right? For a delay, you are going to pay around 450 rupees and end up finally getting a flat 1000 rupees in case that delay actually happens, right? So a lot of people then, take a trade off of, looking at the cost. Already you're paying for a lot of other add-ons. So from that perspective,
Right. There's a lot of internet talk around exactly this, that today flying has become so expensive. Even if and I'm talking primarily of domestic, of course, international is a whole other battle. But on domestic, you're paying for your flight, and then there's so many other stages. A seat at this point can also be an add-on that is considerable when you take all the numbers into consideration. So it has become an expensive affair. I want to ask you, Mahavir, and I want to ask you this question because we actually haven't answered it for our audiences yet. The hoax question. So if, for example, the flight that you're on has received a hoax call of some kind and gets delayed by a few hours, is that covered by insurance?
yes, it will get covered if you've taken this insurance that we spoke about. It basically says that a delay of more than 2 hours will be covered. But the final payment that you will get typically would be in the range of a flat amount of, like I said, 1000 bucks or something like that. So that is how it will be. So it can get covered. You have to be very careful when you're buying the policy, because the policy may not have this cover, or may have a cover which has a very large amount of delay before which it will start paying. So from these perspectives, when you look at all these things together, yes, it can be covered, but there could be fine print.
So let's ask you this then, Mahavir. When your own family is opting for flying in, it's not a
Right.
situation, say, where you are buying the tickets for them. Say another
Right.
family member is going about buying the tickets. What's your advice for them? And I want to ask you this because I want our audiences to come to know some of the secrets someone who understands the insurance industry, the travel insurance in particular, actually goes for. So, what do you tell them to look out for when they're picking their travel insurance, or they're on a website like Make My Trip and they're choosing to see if they should tick for it? Is there a fine print you suggest they read first?
Right. So there are two aspects to this, right? Meaning, although it's not part of insurance, but most OTAs, which is the travel agents, online travel agents, now offer something which is like an additional cover, right? Which is their own, which is not an insurance cover, which allows you to cancel flights and not having to pay for the cancellation fee, right? So that is something that typically I opt with if for my family, if it's a flight which is going to happen, let's say it's a planned flight, like if it's a flight after 2 months and we don't know what could happen that time, then in those situations, I do take that additional, benefit that is available by paying a little more to ensure that, if there is a cancelled, if I have to cancel the flight, I don't have to pay more. I don't have to pay the cancellation fee and take another flight. Or if I want to change dates, I don't have to pay a lot. It then allows me to do that on my on the same cost, right? The other is the travel insurance part. In that, basically, I usually, in case of domestic travel, do not suggest people to buy a cover because, like I said, in my view, and it's a personal view, when I look at it from a cost benefit, I don't see that kind of value, right? So the cost is quite prohibitive in my view, 450 rupees versus when you compare it to the benefit, it does not look like a great deal for me. So typically, I wouldn't at all opt for it in most cases. At the same time, if it's a foreign travel, then it's a mandatory thing. The foreign
Okay,
travel,
wait. So, Mahavir, we'll get to that in a second. But I really want to stop for a second and summarize for our audiences because that's a huge takeaway that you are saying as someone who runs Beshak Insurance, in fact, so another insurance organization. You are saying that you do not opt, and even for your family, in most cases, when it's domestic travel, you don't actually opt for that travel insurance. You don't tick that tick box over there, which is huge for all of us. I wasn't doing it either. It's good to know that the professionals aren't doing it either. Let's go in now very quickly, though, to international insurance, because that's a place where even when you and I were talking a little earlier to, understand what it was that you had to say on this topic, you said international travel, insurance has to be taken. It's not a question. And you actually said that there it's a whole different ball game. Can you illustrate that for us?
Yeah, so actually, international travel, the insurance product is a very, very comprehensive product. It actually cannot be called a travel insurance product. It's a product that covers you for almost like it's like 6, 7 policies inside one policy, right? So it covers you for the trip. It also covers your baggage, the documents in your baggage. It will cover also the time that you are there in the specific country that you have gone to, like for, let's say, even treatments that are required, or if there is some other kind of risk that has occurred. Like, for example, if you've, let's say, hired a car and you end up, damaging or injuring someone, right? Damaging a property or injuring someone, that also gets covered. So it's a very, very detailed cover that basically most insurance companies today give. So from a point of view of when you're in a foreign land, and typically the cost of healthcare in most of the countries that Indians visit is very, very high. You cannot be on your own. In India, when you have a domestic, when you're traveling domestic, you already, if you have a health insurance and you have a term insurance and a personal accident insurance, that would take care of around 50-60% of the risks that you basically are exposed to. Of course, not the trip related risks. But when you're traveling abroad, your regular health insurance does not cover you for traveling abroad. So that's why it becomes super important for you to have an insurance for the entire trip and all the risks around it.
But Mahavir, if I could ask you to give our audiences clean sort of takeaways here when it comes to looking at travel insurance when they are traveling abroad, what should the things they're looking out for be?
Right. So one of the most important things is to customize, right? Do not just go by whatever someone is offering you. Let's say you're buying it from a travel agent or you're buying it even online. Just don't go by pre-packaged offers that are available. If as much as possible, try to probably plan a little earlier and see what are the kind of coverages that are available, and then look at it. I'll just give a quick example that if, let's say, I'm traveling with someone who has an illness, right, or a disease, but he is now permitted to travel by the doctors and the medical fraternity. Uh, there are policies that would cover these illnesses if there is a life-threatening condition that happens, right? And then there are policies which don't cover it. So if I'm basically buying a policy for someone like that, then I will be careful about customizing the policy to ensure that it has this kind of a cover, right? The other thing is basically to understand the coverage, right? So if you're traveling to, let's say, a Southeast Asian country, you could probably buy a smaller coverage. But if you're traveling to US, right, or you're traveling to even Canada or UK, where the healthcare expenses are super high, there you obviously need a much higher cover. So I'll just give a quick example. So a $25,000 cover, it's usually in dollars. The cover is in usually in dollars.
Right.
So $25,000 cover in, let's say, a Thailand or a Singapore, or let's say any other Indonesia kind of country could be good enough. But let's say if you're traveling to US, and typically your travel for US will be for a longer duration also, it should be at least 2.5 lakh dollars, right? So it should be almost like 10 times the cover that you take for a Southeast Asian country because of the difference in the expenses. The other aspect is to understand that a lot of these coverages that are available in two types, right? And this is something which is a very small nuance, but can be really, really useful. Some policies give you covers like trip delay, or let's say baggage delay or baggage loss, in a format which is a reimbursement of expenses, right? So for example, if my baggage is delayed for a particular number of hours, right, the insurer will say whatever money you have spent, you need to provide me bills for those expenses, and I will reimburse you for that inconvenience related expenses that you had to incur. But then there are now better policies that are available, which basically give you a flat amount, right? Which
Okay.
will say, okay, we'll just give you $150 or $200 for the inconvenience beyond a number of hours, right? It's a very, very important thing, because when you're traveling abroad, managing bills is the last thing you want to do, right?
Right.
And usually I've seen friends and family losing their bills, right? Meaning they don't have, and then they don't end up claiming, or they have lost something that an insurer wanted. So that is the second thing. And the third and most important thing is, when you're buying a cover, understand the deductibles in the cover very well. And I know I'm using a technical word, but because it will be written that way is what I need to explain it. Deductible means is that whenever there is a claim that you need to make, a certain amount of money will have to be paid by you, and only after that an insurer will come into picture. So for example, in case of a medical treatment that is required,
Right.
or a dental treatment that is covered in, let's say, a country abroad, the deductible is $100, right? So it basically says that any expense till $100 you will have to pay on your own, and only after that the insurer will start paying, right? So you understand deductibles very well. So all the covers that are available in a travel insurance have deductibles, and you need to understand and be able to accept or understand it properly, absorb it properly before you take the policy, because that's the place where most of the people end up feeling cheated when there is a claim. Like, I give an example. So for example, in trip delay, or let's say a baggage loss or a baggage delay, actually,
Right.
there is a limit, like, which says that if your delay is more than 12 hours, then we will pay, right? If it is less than 12 hours, then we will not pay. And then there are some insurance companies which reduce this to 6 hours. So when you're taking a cover, just don't look at that, okay, baggage delay is covered, but also look at the deductible, which will tell you from what time it will get covered, right? So these are the important things that you need to very carefully understand. One fourth bonus point is that fill the proposal form on your own. So you will have an application form that you have to fill in when you're
Right.
buying
Getting, yeah.
it in a lazy manner, or just to complete a form. There are certain very, very important questions, most importantly questions related to medical history and lifestyle, which is basically if you're a smoker, non-smoker, and those kind of questions. Ensure that you answer those questions well, because at the time of claim these questions will be cross-checked against the real information about you. and that's a large reason for claim rejections, specifically medical treatment. So these four things I would say are very, very important.
So when it comes to international travel, it really seems like your central point has been go about the process very, very carefully. And I think
Right.
particularly from the health aspect, because when a health emergency is happening abroad, it's your health insurance or rather your travel insurance that covers health that can really kick in depending on if you followed it, filled it in carefully, followed the right procedure and picking the right insurance. So your point is this is something that needs to be done very carefully. Can I just ask you, Mahavir, to take our audiences back for one last question, right to where we started this conversation, which was the
Yeah.
question of domestic travel. One of the pieces of advice you gave our audiences, and I want to take it back here because most of our audiences are definitely doing some kind of domestic travel in the next few months. For them, you've said insurance is not where you should look to protect yourself when it comes to flight delays. But we know that flight delays are a rising problem across the industry. So I want to ask you, do you have any suggestions in general on how one can better prepare themselves in such a situation then? If it's not
Right.
travel insurance they can look to anymore?
Yeah. So one thing is, I think being aware of the protocols that are basically laid out by DGCA, right? Being aware of them is very important, in my view. DGCA is basically the regulator for airlines, right? And they basically are people who will basically lay out guidelines for airlines in terms of when they are supposed to compensate the passenger and when they are supposed to basically probably give a new ticket or basically put them in a hotel accommodation. So typically what I remember, I'm not very updated about this, but let's say if there is a late night flight and if it gets delayed, let's say it's a flight after 8 p.m. to let's say in the morning, early morning, and if it gets delayed, then the above 6 hours actually, yeah, if it gets delayed above 6 hours, then the airline is supposed to give you hotel accommodation, right? So know these rules, right? Know these things so that you can actually claim this from the airline. A lot of airlines will not obviously want you to know this, or probably it would be in the fine print. But if you're aware of it, you can actually claim it from the airline itself. So that's one thing that I typically do suggest that people
People to
should.
do. Read the fine print, and it's actually similar to the advice we were giving people earlier, just the importance of passing through the policies themselves. Thank you, Mahavir, for giving us that advice. For you, our TBC audiences, we're going to continue to have experts join us to tell you how to navigate flying, traveling, holidaying in a stressless manner so that holidays do for you what they're supposed to, which is allow you to relax. Let's take you very quickly now from our top story to something slightly different. These are stories that are taking place not just in India, but also across the world. First, we'll take a look at the US, where, remember, as we speak, it is November 5th and it is going to be election day in just a few hours from now in the US. And Kamala Harris, as we can see these visuals coming in, this is her ancestral village in South India. It's rallying behind her residents in the village. This is a village in Tamil Nadu. They're holding special prayers at a local Hindu temple over 8,000 miles away from Washington in hopes of her securing victory in the US presidential elections and becoming, remember, if she does, the first woman ever to be US president. Third quarter as readers cut back on spending in an uncertain economy. This has sent the publisher's shares down 8%, even as ad sales actually have jumped. The slower subscriber growth came in the months ahead of the November 5th US presidential elections that we just told you about. This is normally an event that boosts engagement for media companies, especially with media companies putting their own trust behind a nominee. Fox Corp has opened a new tab. They've reported strong results for the same period thanks to increased political advertising. And then we take you to Spain, where the Prime Minister has ordered 5,000 more troops, 5,000 police officers and civil guards to Valencia in the region as residents continue to criticize local authorities over their response to catastrophic flooding. Remember, we talked a little bit about this yesterday too. Pedro Sanchez, for example, has said that 211 people have been confirmed dead, with the toll expected to rise further. Heavy rains that began on Monday caused flooding that destroyed bridges and covered towns with mud, cutting off communities and leaving them without water, food or electricity. And for those of you who love basketball, Michael Jordan's game-worn red jersey from the 1996-97 basketball championship season This is at that point with the Chicago Bulls. It sold for $4.68 million in New York on Monday. This is as part of the Colossal. It's called the Ultimate Jordan Collection. It's an auction. Jordan wore the jersey during at least 17 games, most notably the game he played in 1997 March, when then rookie Allen Iverson crossed over Jordan, creating an iconic highlight in basketball lore, according to those who are selling it. Most of the time, Jordan would use a jersey for just one game, which is what makes this extra special. And on the other side, moving on from basketball greats to economic ones. After the break, we bring you a chat we're so excited to share with you. We have the 2024 Nobel Memorial Prize winners with us here on the show. We're going to be interviewing them about their research, what the conclusions are, particularly for India, for the field. We talk to them a little bit about all of this and what it's like to win a Nobel Prize. We'll see you in just a few minutes.
It has to do with a little bit of intelligence. And I have a piece of glass over here, and I don't have a piece of glass there. And I have this piece of glass here, but all we have really over here is the fake news, right? And to get me, somebody would have to shoot through the fake news. And I don't mind that so much, because I don't mind that. So I have a piece of glass here. And the problem with that glass is I don't look great on television when you have a 4-inch piece of glass that a howitzer can't go through. No, when you see yourself on television, you say, boy, you're really not very recognizable, to be honest with you, which is good. But here's the problem. So I have glass here, I have glass here. Now, I'm not worried about this. Look, what do I have? A couple of people. And they're friends, generally. There are a couple of people I don't like in that group, but that's like, no, but look at it. Look at it. I have nobody here. What do I need this piece? But where I think I do need a piece is here. What the hell do I know? I must be wrong. I must be wrong. Probably it was probably Biden or the other one that said, screw him, don't give him the glass. Oh, you don't think? Let me tell you, I'll tell you what. Secret Service guys were very brave when I got shot. They stood right in the line of fire. And I don't want to speak out of school, but I can say from the time I got elected, these guys were fighting for more help, for more people like you have up there, great people, but they were fighting for more, 11 times or so. They said, no, that's not right. That's not right. You know, they weren't supposed to do that too, by the way. ABC, it's ABC fake news, CBS, ABC, NBC. These are, in my opinion, these are seriously corrupt people. We will make America safe again. And we will make America great again. Thank you very much. God bless you. Thank you, Pennsylvania. Go vote. Thank you. God bless you all. Thank you.
Welcome back to the Breakfast Club. Right here on the show, we're going to continue to bring you all that there is to know about air quality right now across the entire country. But first, we're going to focus just on the region of the Delhi NCR. So let's take a look first. We're going to start with Mundka in Delhi, where air quality, according to the index, stands at a staggering 999. Remember, that's just the highest that can be measured. It could be higher. This is well beyond the hazardous level. It's posing serious health risks as we speak to residents. Moving on from that now to Anand Vihar in Delhi, where the air quality index is 438, still firmly in the severe category. Narela in Delhi fares slightly better, not by much though, with an air quality index of 332. And if we cross over to Noida, because we can bring you that snapshot of regions around Delhi too, the air quality index is at 239, so it's within the very poor region. The other neighbor, if we take you to Gurgaon, the air quality index is at 203, also in the very poor category. These numbers continue to be a grim reminder of the urgent need for action to combat air pollution in our capital city. Several areas yesterday too were reporting 1110. We're seeing yesterday, as we did, numbers that were coming in from Maharashtra that were also poor, in Mumbai in particular. We're going to continue to keep a focus on this. But next, let's take you to a very interesting discussion, one that is different from this. We're taking you to some of the brightest minds across the world with our conversation in the next few minutes. We're so excited to have on the show two very special guests. Just a few days ago, the Nobel Memorial Prize in Economics was awarded to 3 US-based professors. What they essentially did with their research over decades is show how the political and economic systems introduced by colonizers can determine whether a country is rich or poor in the present day. Today on the show, we're so excited that we have 2 of the 3 winners with us right here. So we're just going to introduce you to them, then we'll start by asking them what it was like to win the Nobel Prize. We have with us Professor Simon Johnson from MIT. We have Professor James Robinson from the University of Chicago. They're both joining us here on the show. Simon, if we could come to you first. Firstly, congratulations on your win. Tell our audiences, this is the first time we're actually having Nobel Prize winners here on the Breakfast Club. What is it like to get that call? Were you sleeping? Do you come to know immediately that you've received the prize on the call itself? Do they say there's big news coming? What is that like?
Well, I didn't actually get the call. I slept through it. I didn't expect anyone would be calling me, so my telephone was off. And I woke up at around 6 a.m. my time, which is my usual waking up time, and I saw all kinds of notifications on my phone, and I thought, that's very strange. And the first message that I really understood, because I was waking up, was one from the office of MIT's president saying, we have a press conference at 10 a.m. this morning, be there. I thought, well, that's not in my calendar, what's happening? And then I began to, journalists started to call me and so on, and the whole thing began to dawn on me.
Wow. Okay, I just want to tell our audiences, we will in just a second take a deep dive into both of your bodies of research. You obviously made this paper, you've done the studies together over the last few years. We'll ask you about that in a second, but we do want to ask you, James, tell us, is there a gentle murmur in the days leading up to the award? So is there a sense that you have that, okay, my name has been, suggested, there's a discussion going on around it? Is there an inkling that you have?
I don't think there's a murmur like that. I think, there's a set of people who, could win it. But, if you ask me to write down, if you'd asked me the day before it was announced who was on that list, I could have put, 30 or 40 names on the list, and maybe ours would have been on the list, but I think it could have gone to any of those 30 or 40 people, so I don't think there's any kind of murmur in the sense that, there's any... I mean, people do bet money on things like that, but I don't think, in my experience, there's no real information. It's an amazingly well-kept secret.
Simon, what does researching with someone for 2 decades actually, more than 2 decades actually look like? I know there was an interview that described all 3 of you as best friends. Do you disagree with that?
Well, I would say we're best colleagues.
Okay.
And I think what that means is we complement each other, we complete each other's sentences, we challenge each other. It doesn't mean we hang out with each other all the time. I think sometimes we need a break from each other, to be completely honest. But yes, it is a very intense cooperative partnership that we've had and that we've built and that we actually now continue.
Okay, if we could now take a deeper dive into your work itself, let's tell our Breakfast Club audiences exactly what it is that you have won this for. Can you tell us, and James, we'll take this question to you, your work over the last few decades has essentially looked to answer the question, why are certain countries poorer than other countries? And you argue through your work and through your research that the kind of institutions that were set up in a country, that actually holds the answer to whether or not that country is poor in the present day. You've also argued that to understand this better, one needs to look at the kind of colonialism a country had. And you've made a very interesting difference there. So you've said that there can be, when it comes to the institutions a country has, extractive institutions or inclusive institutions. It gets a little complex. Can you just break it down for our viewers?
What we developed a theory of was, what explains, of course, the institutions that emerged in the United States were very different from that which emerged in Latin America or Africa, or, so we tried to develop a theory of, why some colonies developed institutions that kind of supported economic growth and economic development, and other countries didn't. And that's where that dichotomy of inclusive and extractive you mentioned comes in, because what we argued is that it really depends a lot on the initial conditions in the colonies, and in particular where there was a lot of indigenous people or natural resources for Europeans to exploit. Then you got very extractive institutions. A very hierarchical society got set up based on the exploitation of indigenous people and natural resources. But where those factors were absent, then the only way, in a place like Australia or in a place like the United States, then to have a viable colony, you had to have white settlements, you had to have European settlement, not white, but European settlements coming, and then very different types of societies emerged. So it was all to do with the initial conditions in the colonies.
But I do want to ask, and Simon, we'll take this question to you. You're essentially tying in the way a country is today to the kind of colonialism that it saw and the kind of institutions that were set up by that colonialism. But what about a country's post-independence decisions? Because you have so many countries that once they get independent, attempted to redefine their institutions. India's obviously coming to mind. You've made your institutions more inclusive after independence. What happens then?
I think there was, a huge wave of enthusiasm and determination behind the idea of breaking up the European empires, particularly after the 1940s. I think the leadership, personally, I think the leadership role and the role model of Mahatma Gandhi was very important, obviously not just in India, but in many other places. And I think there was genuine desire to build something inclusive, which means more people have more rights, more people can participate in the modern economy, there's more opportunities, and also more political voice. We think these things go together. Unfortunately, in some places, or even actually in many places, it proved quite hard to sustain that, and there was some, let's say, falling back to a more extractive mode of ruling, and those extractive modes were exactly what, in many cases, the colonial authorities had established.
So you're saying it's very tricky to maintain those changes. If we could ask you, and James, will take this question to you, we did want to understand how you feel your research, which you've now explained to our audiences exactly what that research was. How do you feel it has impacted or maybe moved the needle in the field that you're in? Because you're in the field of developmental economics. 2019, you had Abhijit Banerjee, Esther Dufalo, both professors. They won the Nobel in the same field. How do you hope your research moves the needle?
I think our work is very different from most work in development economics, because most work in development economics is sort of predicated on the idea that people in poor countries don't really know what to do, and we need to come up with ways of finding ways to solve their problems. But that's not my experience in working in the development world. For me, in my experience, people in Nigerians know much better than Western academics what needs to be done. They just can't cooperate to do it. So our view is, this is about politics, and it's about power, and it's about people changing their societies. It's not about economists coming with clever ideas or new ideas, So I think our view is sort of fundamentally different from the view of Professor Banerjee and Professor Duflo, to be honest with you.
Professor James, Professor Simon, thank you for joining us here on The Breakfast Club. The research you've done over the last few decades obviously is hugely impactful but also complex. So we hope we were able to some degree, break down that for you, explain to you why it is that they were able to win such a prestigious award by showing why it is that certain countries are poorer than others. That's essentially the one line which they will use often in interviews to summarize their research. Why are some countries poorer than other countries today across the entire world? Okay, we hope that provided you with a little bit of context into this groundbreaking research. We're going to head into a quick break. Coming up after the break, we have something entirely different. We're taking you to the roads. 2024 Audi Q8, the first drive review. Overdrive is going to bring you the answer to whether or not this is the luxury SUV that you've been waiting for. It has power, it has style, but is it the ultimate luxury SUV experience? That and more in just a few minutes.
Hello, I'm
It has to do with a little bit intelligence, and I have a piece of glass over here, and I don't have a piece of glass there, and I have this piece of glass here, but all we have really over here is the fake news, right? And to get me, somebody would have to shoot through the fake news. And I don't mind that so much, because I don't mind that. So I have a piece of glass here. And the problem with that glass is I don't look great on television when you have a 4-inch piece of glass that a howitzer can't go through. No, when you see yourself on television, you say, boy, you're really not very recognizable, to be honest with you, which is good. But here's the problem. So I have glass here, I have glass here. Now, I'm not worried about this. Look, what do I have? A couple of people. And they're friends, generally. There are a couple of people I don't like in that group, but that's like, no, but look at it. Look at it. I have nobody here. What do I need this piece? But where I think I do need a piece is here. What the hell do I know? I must be wrong. I must be wrong. Probably it was probably Biden or the other one that said, screw him, don't give him the glass. Oh, you don't think? Let me tell you, I'll tell you what. Secret Service guys were very brave when I got shot.
Welcome back on The Breakfast Club. We're taking you now to the roads. Are you in the market for a luxury coupe SUV? If you are, we've got an answer for you right here on the show. On the show, we're going to be reviewing the 2024 Audi Q8. It's priced at a whopping 1.17 crores. But is it worth it? It has a 3-litre V6 turbo petrol engine. It features soft closed doors, panoramic sunroofs, and a beautiful, beautiful audio system. Is this the coupe that you want to go for? Overdrive brings you the verdict. Take a look.
Now, the Audi Q8 has always been thought of as that fun, stylish alternative to the Q7. But from every time we've driven it, and given that it's also fairly popular, we think that its appeal might just be unique. And given that there's a new one out, let's see if that sense holds true. Now, start driving the Audi Q8 and it's pretty easy to get used to, especially considering it's quite a big wide car. Now that's mainly due to the good visibility that you have out of it because of this wide windscreen, and generally the square shape that helps in this regard. The large windows, that also helps. You don't sit very high up, you don't sit very low, you have that SUV-ish feel to it. So in that sense it's all good. But the highlight for me has to be this engine. Now it's not new, it's been carried over from the last model, but just in the way it functions is so impressive. Now you have a 3-litre V6 that makes 340 PS and 500 Newton meters. Yeah, so it's not anywhere close to the highly strung engines that you have in some other manufacturers, and that's no bad thing because that 500 Nm of torque comes in at just 1400 RPM, which means that you never really get the sense that this engine is turbocharged. Yes, it's not as responsive as say a naturally aspirated engine would be, but you always have torque. So even in stop-start traffic, the big displacement and this sort of trait of this engine means that you don't stutter, you're not, waiting for that engine to spool up.
The drive modes also do their bit. They notably change engine response that helps in various situations. Sport mode amps things up without feeling peaky. Efficiency isn't too restrictive but maximizes consumption. As for the numbers, the Q8 managed a 0 to 100 kmph time of 6.1 seconds in a testing, while the rolling acceleration times were brisk too.
And that really does make for really luxurious driving. And then of course the refinement sort of adds to this sense. It's especially quiet. Only when you're revving it out closer to the red line is when you hear it. And even then it's quite a soft sort of grumble, but it's not intrusive and it doesn't really get in the way. And then of course when you want to go faster, you have a wide power band, you have a lot of performance, that torque just keeps going. So at highway speeds it has that long-legged feel.
The 8-speed ZF gearbox is as usual great, especially in calmer driving. It always keeps the engine on the boil, shifts are seamless more or less, and in brisk driving it seems up to the job of matching the engine's energy. In heavy driving with the sport mode, it has a fun sharp edge to the shifts, but you do notice that it starts to hesitate a bit to drop gears, which it doesn't seem to do in some of the other cars it's fitted to. But this is not much of a problem in the larger scheme of things.
Now big change with this update is that Audi has removed the air suspension that was available with the Q8 earlier, and now you get steel springs with adjustable dampers. Now I must say that Audi has done a good job of it. So even with these quite low profile 21-inch wheels, it handles everything that our roads have to offer. So of course it has that solid, dependable feel that you get from these German cars. But over bad patches, it's not especially firm, so you don't feel uncomfortable.
There's great stability on highways and the Q8 handles undulations without losing composure. You get a substantial flowing luxury car demeanor which adds to the overall refinement.
Now where you do notice it to be somewhat lacking is say around bends or just when you're driving along say on a slightly winding road. Now that is because the body roll isn't as well controlled. The earlier Q8 would sort of lower itself a little bit on its springs, but that doesn't happen in this car anymore. So you do notice that there's some body roll, there's a bit of dive and pitch around winding road. Now despite this, the Q8 is still an enjoyable car to drive. You have this very strong chassis, you have that quattro system which is rear bias, 70% of the power usually goes to the back wheels, and it just makes for a confident driving experience. Now the steering also helps with it. It's not especially responsive or reactive, but it's direct, it's precise, it's well weighted. So again, it just goes with that sense of being very competent, of being enjoyable but not too hard edge for someone who's just looking for a nice comfortable luxury car. And then of course I must mention the brakes. Considering this is a big heavy car, we managed to get a really good time with the braking. So in terms of stopping distances too, the Q8 does well.
Stepping into the 2024 Audi Q8, the frameless doors with their soft close function create a sense of occasion. But once inside, there's not much that has changed. But this is not necessarily a bad thing. This space continues to feel contemporary and built to the standard you expect at this price. So that crisp angular look with the technical theme continues with the full width style vents, the discrete ambient lighting, and the quattro badge that sits on the dash face.
Just this layout now, it's not the most modern anymore, to be honest. You have cars with much bigger screens now. Now this screen with that haptic feedback, it's not as difficult to use as some of the new fully touch sensitive panels that you get. So it's a sort of middle ground between having fully hard buttons and the new screens, and that's alright in my opinion.
Okay, taking you now from a fabulous car to something else that's fabulous that we have not been able to take off our minds since it first aired. Get ready for an inside scoop on the fabulous lives of Bollywood wives in this sit-down interview. Take a look.
I must tell you that, you guys are not just being talked about in India, but here in the US as well. And, all of my friends are, only asking about you guys. And I'm not just saying it for the sake of it, but trust me, they're like, have you watched the show? Tell us about how it is. Our weekends are sorted. We'll binge watch the show. Everybody's so excited. Tell me, what is the best reactions you have got so far, and who did it come from? I'll start with Maheep. With you, Maheep.
It's not the best reaction. It's just how, I give you an example. We just went for a Diwali party now to Mehrotra's, and everybody there, we could tell they were all coming up to us, congratulating us. You could tell that they enjoyed the show. They were invested in the show. They were talking about scenes. So that I find very overwhelming also, because they're from the same fraternity, and so many talented mega people who were coming up to us. And I thought that was very overwhelming and very humbling, and very, very nice to get that feedback from from the fraternity.
Right. Bhavna?
I think I would have a very similar answer to what Maheep has said, because four of us, we were together at this party, and we felt the love. We felt, everyone came up to us and, told us how much they were enjoying the show. And also I've had a lot of people, Chunky's promoting a film of his. So he's been going out and meeting people. I've had Ananya's team come over, and, right now they're like all sitting with me and excited and wanting to know about the show. They want to know how much of it is real still. And I'm like, for the last 3 seasons, we've been saying the same thing, that everything is real and everything is organic. So I think, as Maheep said, we're totally overwhelmed and so humbled with all the love and the kind of reaction we're getting. And even on social media, it's just been amazing.
Right. Seema?
I think they've said it all. To be honest, it's very, very overwhelming, and you feel really blessed and grateful. And sometimes I'm always waiting for the other shoe to drop, because I'm like, what have I done? What have we done? We've just been ourselves. So, and they kind of acknowledge that, where we've reached. And, when you reality is not easy to do, right? You put your lives out there, but at the end of the day, with this kind of love, I can just say it's totally worth it. When you see that, you feel truly blessed, grateful, and it's another feeling altogether. I've just been, the feeling, the love, and there's so much love coming our way for just being ourselves. It's truly humbling.
Yeah. Guys, like Seema said, that doing a reality show is not easy, because you're putting yourself out there for public to judge your life, Tell me, did you guys ever get any kind of pushback from any of your family members or friends that, why do you guys doing this? And why do you guys putting yourself for people to, to judge you and to discuss you? Did you guys get any kind of pushback? Seema?
Not at all. I've never got pushback for doing the show, but my mother's constantly worried that, I hope, what have you said? What are you wearing? Don't use too much of bad language, that kind of stuff. But other than that, being myself and being real, I think in my house, I've always been encouraged just to be myself.
Right. Maheep?
No, honestly, no pushback. I mean, that boat had sailed once we were on season 1, quite frankly. We knew the game. We knew that we were going to be up for judgment. We knew, because we were putting our families, our children, and you see, people don't understand how damn unnerving it is. It is very unnerving to be misunderstood. Because you're seeing 45 minutes each episode. So to to be misunderstood is not a nice feeling. And like Neelam had mentioned before, that it's probably easier being in a film actress because you're playing a character. Here we're judged for us as people, as personalities, you know.
Next, we bring you a special section on financial markets. It's powered by Money Control Pro, Money Control's premium destination for investing and business insights. Let's take a look first at markets with GIFT Nifty indicating a dull opening for Indian stock markets. US stock markets closed lower. This is ahead, of course, of the presidential elections in just a few hours from now. Crude oil and gold prices are steady amid caution among traders because of this. Asian stock markets are trading lower in Tuesday morning trade as we speak. Let's take a look now at a sector in particular. Outsourced service is a growth area for Indian players thanks to technology prowess and skilled yet affordable manpower. One such enables healthcare providers and insurers to enhance patient care, control costs, and of course to streamline operational efficiency. US healthcare spend is highest among the leading economies and should increase at a CAGR of 5.5% between 2023 and 28. Will this IPO therefore be the right prescription for investors? That's of course the big question. You can log into Money Control Pro to find out more about the outsourced service sector and various other actionable insights on the markets. It's the premier destination for all investing views and insights that you're ever going to need. Brought to you, of course, by Money Control. And with that, we're drawing our show to a close. The Breakfast Club will be returning tomorrow. We'll take a short break because, of course, we're going to be bringing you all of the US election coverage right here on CNN News 18. But right after that, we're back with everything you love on The Breakfast Club.
It has to do with a little bit intelligence. And I have a piece of glass over here. And I don't have a piece of glass there. And I have this piece of glass here. But all we have really over here is the fake news, right? And to get me, somebody would have to shoot through the fake news. And I don't mind that so much, because I don't mind that. So I have a piece of glass here. And the problem with that glass is I don't look great on television when you have a 4-inch piece of glass that a howitzer can't go through. No, when you see yourself on television, you say, boy, you're really not very recognizable, to be honest with you, which is good. But here's the problem. So I have glass here, I have glass here. Now, I'm not worried about this. Look, what do I have? A couple of people. And they're friends, generally. There are a couple of people I don't like in that group, but that's like, no, but look at it. Look at it. I have nobody here. What do I need this piece? But where I think I do need a piece is here. What the hell do I know? I must be wrong. I must be wrong. Probably it was probably Biden or the other one that said, screw him, don't give him the glass. Oh, you don't think? Let me tell you, I'll tell you what. Secret Service guys were very brave when I got shot. They stood right in the line of fire. And I don't want to speak out of school, but I can say from the time I got elected, these guys were fighting for more help, for more people like you have up there, great people. But
Good morning, viewers. Hello and welcome to the Morning News Show. I'm Koina Sharma from CNN News 18 with the latest on the high-stakes US elections. With crucial swing states in play and the possibility of a historic first for America, it's all on the line now. So stay tuned for live updates and in-depth analysis as we dive into this pivotal White House race. Now the curtain is about to go up on one of the most closely contested US elections in recent history. In just a few hours, the world will know whether Trump returns to office after 4 years or if America will elect Kamala Harris, its first woman president, and that too of Indian origin. Harris is holding several rallies in Michigan while Trump is jumping between Pennsylvania and North Carolina and Georgia, all crucial swing states. Now we'll take you directly to the action with the on-ground reports and perspectives from experts and how this election is shaping up across America.
So it's the big election in America between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. While there is so much interest in India and around the world as to who will become the next president of the United States, it ultimately boils down to a bunch of swing states, some important communities, whether they show up at the vote or not. We'll also talk about the Indian American community, whether they are overwhelmingly Democrat or they split. Let's try and find a little bit more about this US election, which is being closely watched, with Dhruv Jayashankar, Executive Director with ORF America. Thank you very much, Dhruv, for speaking with us. So, big picture, I mean, we're a day away from Election Day. Just how big is this election? What are the stakes?
It's a big election. It feels like every 4 years there's a big election in the US. It's a very divided polity. Roughly 45% of Americans vote Republican, 45% vote Democrat. And really it's only about 5 to 10% whose opinion has to be swayed each election. And the divides are quite deep across age lines, gender lines, cultural lines, rural, urban. I think there's a big divide there. So I think this is playing out again as it is every 4 years.
What do you think it'll boil down to? I mean, in such a close race, is it the swing states? Is it who's motivated more? Is it anti-incumbency? What's the big X factor?
There are lots of X factors, which is what's making it hard to predict. The polls show pretty much a 50-50 split. 7 states will really determine this election. They're called the swing states. I find it hard to believe the winner will not be the winner of Pennsylvania. You think that will be a state that just mathematically, unless many other results go in a very unexpected manner, that's a state that both either candidate will have to win the election.
That's the biggest.
That's the biggest prize.
Swing,
yeah,
swing
the biggest.
state.
Yeah. And the margins are going to be very thin. So ultimately, it'll come down to voter enthusiasm for the two candidates. Whether more of Trump supporters come out to vote on Election Day, or whether more of Harris's voters come out, and that will happen tomorrow, and that will really determine the outcome.
So, one interesting thing, and I guess in elections past, other than the 2021, one new phenomenon we're seeing is a lot of people are voting early,
yes,
either by post or by mail-in, by in-person early voting. I think 75 million is the figure that I last checked. That's almost half the electorate.
Yes.
Is there anything in there for us to know that's perhaps the way in which this election